It's where it's tricky when it's live. There's no second takes. Can't go stuttering when it's live.
Here we are.
Here's the podcast. Now, before we get on with this week's show, you may have wondered about those brand new, stylish-looking blocks of apartments that surround our new stadium at Plough Lane. Well, 181 of those apartments are brought to you by Catalyst New Homes in a development known as The Switch. Homes at The Switch are available through shared ownership, a part-buy, part-rent government-backed scheme, making the switch to home ownership surprisingly more affordable, with one-bedroom apartments starting from £98,750 for a 25% share. Take watching at home to a new level. With pitch views available, as well as high specifications and excellent transport links, don't you think it's time you made the switch? Visit the Switch, sw17.co.uk for more information about buying a home.
And good evening, and welcome to the Sunday Night Live with myself, George Jones, and Tom Large join us. And you'll see that we are joined by Will Nightingale and Nick Zaneb. Guys, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Glad to be here. Glad to be with you guys.
No problem at all. Where should we start? I think the best place to start is yesterday. Sorry, bless you, that's my wife sneezing. It's live TV for you. A great, 2-2 draw against Charlton yesterday. Come back from a goal down twice. What are your thoughts on the game, Will?
Obviously, there's a lot of positives, especially if you look at how we finished the game. So it's frustrating because obviously we wanted all 3 points, especially the position we're in now. But I think Robbo said to us after the game, like, if we play like that until the end of the season, then we should have more than enough wins to be more than all right. So I think we just need to keep the belief and try and take all of those positives and the effort levels that we put into the Charlton game and just replicate that. I mean, he said that that's our level now, that's our standards. And I think it is, but we've also just got to keep pushing as well. We've also got to keep pushing to that next step kind of thing. So yeah, obviously a lot of positives, but we now want to go one further and get the 3 points.
And Nick, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think we started off really well. Those first 10 minutes, you wouldn't tell the difference between either team. Them being in like promotion places, trying to push for it. It just showed what a good team we can be when we put all our effort in and we're getting around each other, and just, I think it's the belief as well that we're that good enough team to be battling against teams like this and potentially winning games as well. So I thought it was a good performance from the boys yesterday, and just shows, like Nicey said, just about getting that first win and getting a bit of momentum, and I think that will carry us through.
How important do you guys think these next run of games are for us, facing a lot of the teams that are near the bottom of the table?
Yeah,
massive.
Yeah,
go on.
Yeah, massive. I think, especially with this game in hand now that we have, I think if we can get a win under our belt for that game, I think it's a massive push, because I think it's so tight. We push up about 3-4 places, I think it is, just with one win. And I think it's just continuing the way Robbo wants us to play. And as you can see, we're playing a lot higher line. I'm playing a lot higher up the pitch. And I think it helps us being able to lock teams in a lot more. So I think it's very positive for the next couple of games coming up, and yeah, hopefully get some results out.
Yeah, one thing I will say as well, like, all of the boys know how serious it is, the position we're in, how far the club's come. Obviously now we've got the new stadium. We know how serious it is, that we want to retain, obviously, League One status. And I think we're going out into every game now as though it is our last game kind of thing. It's like it's our last opportunity, and we've got to go out and want to win every game. And I think we're more than good enough to. So if we approach games with that mindset, then just take it game by game.
I think we're losing Will a little bit there. Yeah. Just what I was coming back. Well, I just obviously let you internet connection. That's okay. Nick, obviously you've come in recently. Obviously, we were playing 3-5-2 before. We're now playing with a 4-4 at the back. How do you find that? Because you were just talking about saying boxing teams in and finding the angles. How is your role within that? Because I've noticed obviously you're creating the angles as well, aren't you, for them?
Yeah. I think it's always, I'm sort of there for an out ball as well, so we can just keep recycling play. I think whereas in the past we'd always go long or use the channel ball quite a lot. I think now, because I'm managing to give those angles and give other options to the back four, I think it helps them loads, because then it's not just losing the football up higher up the pitch and then having to wave after wave, having to defend attacks, you know. So I think playing that high line is good, because then there is gaps between the midfield, all three sort of positions, sort of midfield, defence and strikers. There aren't any gaps, which allows us to be sort of more on the front foot, and me on the front foot, being sort of acting like a sweeper keeper. And credit to Robbo, he's implemented that, and I'm glad I could be a part of it as well.
Will, how have you found it playing? Obviously, you played in the free for quite a long time now. How are you finding it playing now with just two centre halves on that side of it?
I've probably had a lot more experience in terms of playing four at the back, been a lot more used to that. But at the end of the day, whatever formation you're given, I think you have to kind of adapt and you have to change depending on what's needed from you. So no matter what formation you play, if you're not doing the basics well, then you're going to get punished, really. But obviously Robbo's come in and he's changed a few different bits and bobs, and all of the boys are taking it on board and buying into it. And I think that's one of the biggest things as well. Like there's one thing having a formation, but if players aren't really buying into it, then it's not really going to work as positively as what it could be. So the fact that everyone's on board with what Robbo's wanting from us, it just is a massive help with what formation he goes with.
Just touching on Nick's involvement in the team, obviously that's 2 games in a row now with 2 quite impressive performances. How have you found, getting that number 1 position in the squad?
Yeah, it's amazing for me, especially it would be even better if the fans were there at Plough Lane, being my first game back at Plough Lane. But yeah, ever since I came in against Bristol, I think Bezo's always prepared me up to this point, because it's been quite frustrating for me sitting on the bench, also coming last year from Sutton, having regular game time there, about 20 games there, and I've done well. So it was just frustrating not to play this season. But obviously I'm really grateful for the opportunity now, and I think it's a credit to Bezo as well, also for keeping me ready, and I played 2 reserve games before that, sort of played the way Robbo wanted me to play, to prove that I can play that way, and put in, and hopefully I can just continue to put out good performances and keep the unbeaten run since I've been in, I think it is.
It's interesting. Go on.
You go.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's interesting with the Sutton sort of side of it, because I think obviously it's so much has happened over the last year or so. People may forget that actually you spent time at Sutton. And I know I've got a few friends who are Sutton United fans, and they were gutted. They're gutted that they couldn't keep hold of you. But if you look at 19 games, 7 clean sheets, so a lot of those clean sheets come towards the end of that. How was that for your development? Because obviously it can't be great just sitting on a bench as a reserve goalkeeper. You need games, surely.
For sure, and I don't think people realise I'm 24 now, so I'm at the point where I have to be playing regular games, because as a goalkeeper you have a long career, but there has to be a point where you have to sort of stamp your foot down, and even if you aren't playing, potentially fall down the leagues and get game time there, because if you're not playing, then you can't develop, And I think Sutton was a massive step in my career, because it's conference, it's a really competitive league, and it's like relentless over Christmas. It's every couple of days there's games, Tuesday, Saturday, and I think to experience that type of football where there's a lot of pressure, whereas before the previous loan moves were quite far down the league. So I think having that pressure, and when I went, we're about 23rd, and obviously that's the relegation battle for them at the time. I know obviously it was in November, so it was quite a while until the end of the season, but it's obviously in the back of everyone's mind. So I think it was a really good experience for me just to build, and then for me to be able to kick on and hopefully do the same at Wimbledon.
Where was you when you left Saturn Dance?
Where was I where I left? 13th.
What?
23rd and then 13th. We're about 6 points off the playoffs as well, and we were pushing for it. So, yeah, it's good bit of momentum we had going.
Now, see, what's the relationship between you two? Because obviously, I know when we come on, a lot of laughs between you. Does that help, that sort of relationship between you guys? Because it's important you're talking to each other and so forth.
Well, on the pitch, yeah, definitely. Obviously, I think we have that trust kind of thing. Obviously, we're close off the football pitch, and I think it just allows us to put that trust in each other on the pitch as well. So obviously, we've played quite a few games with each other in the 23, so we kind of have that understanding of well, I definitely have that understanding of when I know Tan's going to come for a ball and when he's not, and when he wants me to deal with it as well. And I'm sure it's the same vice versa as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think the relationship off the pitch is massive as well, because it's sort of like a second sense when we sometimes know what, if I shout keeps and I'm coming for a ball, Knights will know just to get around me, and it's always just backing each other up. Even if one of us does a mistake, we know that it's obviously unintentional and we'll always support each other. So I think that's massive thing to have on the pitch.
So how has it been under Robbo? Obviously, a lot's changed in a really short space of time. I'm not. Will, would you have been around Robbo probably in the youth? I'm sure you would have been on that sort of side of it. Is anything? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go on. Finish.
I was going to say, is anything different, or is it really what he was doing in the academy he's brought through into the first team?
Yeah, obviously I had him as my under-18s manager, and he was a big part of convincing me to stay on at Wimbledon at a time when it was up in the air whether I was going to stay on at school or go down the football route, really. So yeah, Robbo's been a massive part of my career already, and I think obviously he's not been around the first team too long, but I think when you understand the game and when you understand football, at the end of the day, it's the exact same whether you're coaching, what age group it is. If you understand the game of football, it doesn't matter what experience you've had, kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, he's been brilliant. I mean, this isn't me saying that it hasn't been the case before, but the fact that Robbo's such a likeable character, it makes all of the players want to do so well for him. Whereas before, again, not saying it's been in the past, but whereas some people or players elsewhere may just be playing for themselves, with Robbo, you want to do well for yourself as well as him. So, I mean, that's a massive plus with a lot of the boys. But I think, yeah, he's got a lot of the same beliefs as what he had when I had him as a youth team manager, and he's always had success at the under-18. So I'm sure he's trying to implement a lot of the same stuff where he's had success through to the first team. And I do think it is clicking, and a lot of things are starting to come into place, and hopefully fans can see that as well.
Just another quick question for you. Well, obviously, he took the captain's armband and wants to make 11 captains on the pitch. And as we've seen straight away, you're in Team of the Week. How do you feel that's affected your performances?
To be fair, I agreed with a lot of. I mean, Robbo obviously pulled me aside to make sure that it didn't try and dent my confidence at all. And he said to me that he was going to take the captain's armband off me. And obviously, when I was captain of Wimbledon, it was a massive honour for me. But at the same time, he said to me, whether you have it or whether you're not, I know that you're going to be the sort of person that will want to lead through your performances and try and, like, I'm the sort of person when I play a game of football, I'll do everything I can for the team. Obviously, I know mistakes happen and errors can happen, but I'll never give anything less than 100%. And I'll always try and talk my way through games and try and lead where I can. So whether I have that armband or not, I don't believe that it should affect my performance in any way. So I think he wanted to try and bring a bit more out of other people, and I could look at it two ways. It could obviously make me a bit annoyed and make me turn my nose up a little bit, or it can spur me on a bit to try and not prove him wrong, but try and show, yeah, you're right, that I can lead without it. So yeah.
Got a question here from Zach Thompson, who's watching in from, I think, Indianapolis. I think, Zach, if I remember properly, out in the US of A. He asked, how different... Oh, my cat has just now tried to come on camera. 1 second. Oh, live TV. How different is playing at Plough Lane compared to Kings Meadow? And how different do you believe Plough Lane will be with Vans? Nick, you sort of touched on that earlier. You've obviously experienced both.
Yeah, I think it's going to be... Obviously, at Kings Meadow, it was great with the crowd because it was such a close pitch, and I think the fans were so close to the pitch, which made it great. But I think it's the same at Plough Lane, just looking up into the big stand where the tunnel is and just imagining it with people and with fans there. I think it'll be unreal. The difference there with, I think it's about 8,000 capacity, and the chance to even build up on the other 3 stands as well. I think it could turn into, it already is an amazing stadium, and playing there, just looking at it when I'm reviewing my clips, just the pitch, the chairs, the screen now that's up, I think it's looking like a proper ground. It feels like it's like a Wimbledon ground now, like everyone sort of we're home sort of thing. So it's massive as well for the players, and it's just the only thing that's missing is the fans.
Well, how have you found it? Because obviously you were captain for the Doncaster game, and I can imagine you probably wanted to lead out a team and something at Plough Lane. How has it been? That must be really challenging for you.
Yeah, obviously that was a phenomenal moment in my career, that. And obviously Kings Meadow was brilliant for me. Like Tans was saying, it was so closed in. And you think about Wimbledon, we may not have like the most fans, but I think like we've definitely got like the most passionate fans. And so to think that we're going to be almost doubling or tripling the scale of what we had at Kings Meadow and transferring that to Plough Lane, I think on a Tuesday night or even a Saturday afternoon, the atmosphere is going to be electric, especially like when we're on top with momentum. Especially if you think back to the Charlton game the other day, if we had fans there in the second half, the amount that it would have helped, just with how passionate our fans are now, obviously how much they believe in the club is brilliant. So yes, it's an incredible stadium, and credit to Joe Palmer as well of how much he put in behind the scenes to get us to where we are. And it's honestly, it's in such a good place now that we can't wait for when the fans come back and join us with it.
Sorry, Don, you had a hand up there before you were going to ask a question. That's okay. Well, so set piece coaches, we've heard a lot about set piece coaches. How much of obviously set pieces have always been a key thing, but how much work are you actually putting in that? And Nick, are you involved with the set piece side of it in terms of, I imagine from a defensive point of view, are you involved obviously on that side?
Yeah, I think on the defensive side of things, it's quite similar to what we were doing, sort of from corners, having the 3 zones and then defending that way. I think the only thing that's changed is maybe potentially looking at from free kicks, really close range for the wall to jump, to potentially have someone lying down behind the wall so we can get the maximum range. But I think it's just a matter of where the ball is and where the free kick is going to be coming from. But I think playing a higher line now allows me to push even further forward and sort of claim more stuff, which I haven't had too many crosses to deal with in the last 3 games, but I think that's one of my strong points. So playing that higher line allows me to come out for the ball and gives me a lot more space to judge it and stuff. But I think on the attacking ones as well, it's just arranging the lads behind the ball, keeping them switched on for the counter, which I think a lot of teams in this league rely on counters. So I think it's also what some people don't realise is defensively on the attacking is what I'm trying to think of as well. So, but yeah.
Well, what about yourself, Will? Obviously, you love getting up, and I had a chance yesterday with a header. How are you finding the new sort of coach side of it?
Yeah, obviously, like set pieces are really important. It can literally make such a difference to your season in terms of keeping it out of the box, as well as trying to add goals when you get corners and free kicks. And we've never really had just a set coach for that. So the fact that we've now got a set coach for that, he can literally provide his whole attention on that, and he's very thorough with all of his ideas, all of his strategies, and how the coaching staff in general has been very like open and wants to have conversations with us as players. So if there are any like grey areas, he wants us to be able to air them rather than just be told and be robotic. At the end of the day, I think the coaches realise that us as players are playing the game, so they're trying to work off of our insight as well as add to their own little fine detail with things. So he's been really good, to be fair, Andy. He's got some good ideas, and I do believe that the goals, like, we're not far away from adding quite a few to our game. Obviously we've not got as many as we would have liked yet with him, but I think we're not far off from adding quite a few rather than just the odd 1 or 2.
You mentioned obviously the approach they take quite open. How do you feel that's affected the dressing room?
I think it's made the bond between the players and the coaching staff a lot closer and a lot tighter. And I think one thing with Wimbledon, how it's been over the years, is it's always been a club where everybody should be in it together. I think even little things like this with the 9 Years podcast, just having this relationship and this bond with players and fans, and like with coaches as well. Like, we want everyone to be in it together. Obviously, the more people pulling in the same direction, the better it's going to be for the club. And I think that's one area that Wimbledon as a club does stand out from other clubs, really. And we want to try and bridge that gap between us players and fans and the coaches as well. And I think Robbo's a big believer in that as well. And I think he's trying to implement that into us and stress to us how important it is, obviously, because at the end of the day, like, we wouldn't be where we are without the fans. So I think everyone supporting the club's been brilliant over the years. And now we want to go one step further and try and just create that unity. But yeah, with the coaching staff, it's really good because obviously we can air what we think and they can do the same, and we can all just try and get to what we think is the best approach for on the pitch.
Yeah, and I think also for when it comes down to playing as well, you can never practice for every scenario that's going to happen on the football pitch, you know. So it's good that we have these conversations so we can improvise on the pitch sometimes when there's a sort of like if there's a free kick really deep inside our half and we have to potentially set up as a corner from that free kick. So I think it's good having that communication between the coaches and the players about potentially different grey areas, and being able to solve those on the pitch is, I think, a good step in the progression of our team.
So we were chatting about Robbo earlier. He's a very likable guy. However, I did chuckle to myself in yesterday's post-match comments, where he was challenging the players to come back with what they could have done for the goals. Is that something that you feel comfortable with? I like that in terms of it's an accountability, which is what Robbo wants, isn't it? Yeah. But is that something you're comfortable with on a Monday morning, sort of like, you know, dissecting the game and going in there and saying what you could have done? Because goals are always avoidable. We can look at every goal and say you should have done that, you should have done that. But has that been good, the accountability side of it?
I think it's brilliant. I think, to be honest, as players, I think you have to take responsibility and you have to hold your hands up if you've made an error, because then you have to dissect it and you have to realise where you've gone wrong and talk about it so you can make sure it doesn't happen again. So obviously it's probably not nice when you do look back and you see yourself making an error, but if that's the case, then you make sure you don't do that again if you don't want to be feeling like that. So you shouldn't shy away or hide from the fact if you've made an error, like I said. And I think me, on a personal note, I set high standards for myself, and whenever I do make an error or a mistake, I do like to dissect it and look into it. And to be honest, obviously, it's just me being open. Obviously, I've looked at both of the goals from yesterday, and the first one I should have stayed with the centre forward and followed him all of the way into the box and made it harder for him to get that first contact. And with the second one, I've tried to obviously stay with the centre forward, and because I felt like it was too late to change markers, especially the position we was in. So obviously you can look at everything differently, and there's so many different opinions in football, but I'll always listen to criticism from my coaches and from people close to me, and I'll always take it on board. But I also know I'm not naive. I know when I've done something that I think I should do better, and I'll always want to try and strive to be the best I can be.
Yeah, I think it's big impact as well. I think what Knights is saying is just being able to reflect on everything and then putting it to bed after the meeting, putting it to bed, and then just thinking about the next game and preparing for that next game. Because I think that's massive, not having to ponder on mistakes, because everyone makes mistakes, you know. So I think it's just how we learn from them, squish them, and then just move on, which I think we've been doing really well, because the meetings have been really interactive with all the players and coaching staff. So
how pleasing was yesterday's goals? And obviously the goalkeeper's union, I'm not expecting you to be horrible about the goalkeeper yesterday, Nick, but our pressing was excellent on that.
Yeah.
Was that something you've worked in training? Because I know it looks like it's a mistake, but there's a high press on that, isn't it? Was that satisfying for, I suppose, Nick, as you, a goalkeeper?
Yeah.
Was that satisfying, and did you have any sympathy for the goalkeeper?
I think you always have sympathy for the goalkeeper, but I think it wasn't really his mistake. So it looked like it was the centre back's mistake. But Yeah, I think it's credit as well again to Robbo, because it's just that high press, and I think before in the past we wouldn't have been able to play that high and create that mistake, which I think is really a sort of like a step forward in the way we play, I think, and having that high press in it, I think it relieves a lot of pressure from the centre backs as well, and to an extent the goalkeeper unit, because then they're not playing through us as much now. So it's either playing over us or down the sides, so it's a lot easier to defend. And then winning it up there, I think being able to nick goals like that is I think a massive part of the game as well.
Well, I was just going to say very quickly, obviously, I don't know, I think it was obviously the second goal was one that people spoke about, but the first goal was 7 passes until Longman shoots into the bottom corner, and all the back four were involved in that. Yeah. It just shows you, doesn't it, in terms of passing ability? Like, is that nice to be involved in the goals like that and have the confidence to pass it? And because Hennigan plays a great ball out to the right wing on that, and the goals literally ball to fate all the time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's one thing with Robbo as well. Like, he puts a lot of confidence in you as a player, and I think as a player, that's all you can ask for really from your manager. Because then once you've got the confidence, then it's up to you as a player to deliver and to show him what you're capable of, really. But yeah, Robbo's given us a lot of confidence to play out. But at the same time, he's also very wary of the fact of us playing unnecessarily as well. And we're trying to get that right balance between obviously playing pointlessly, but also playing with a purpose. And Robbo's all about, when you have the ball, it's got to be used with a purpose rather than just passing for the sake of it. He's very much aware of the fact that, yeah, he wants us to make use of the ball with a purpose kind of thing. So that's one thing we're also working on getting better at.
Superb. And finally, the Don's Local Action Group yesterday was a year old, and there was a celebration at Plough Lane. I suppose in times of, we've always been a community club, and so were you not surprised, but it's an amazing effort, isn't it, of what's gone on at DLAG? And I know you guys have both been involved, haven't you, Will? Yeah,
I mean, it's an incredible achievement, really. If you'd have told people before it started up, this is how far it would have got, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't have believed you. Not in a negative way, but just how far it's taken off. And I know they want to keep getting bigger and bigger, really. And yeah, it's been incredible, really. And us as players, we always want to try and help out where we can. And I think Robbo's been a big supporter of it, so he's always trying to get us involved. But yeah, like you said, it's always been a community club, Wimbledon, and it just relates back to that point where I've said I want to have that gap bridge between players and fans, but also between the community as well. So the more we can do and help out, I mean, we feel privileged to be part of something that's taken off as much as it has.
Yeah, and I think also it's just boosting the popularity for the club as well. Like, I remember driving through Surbiton and Dons everywhere. I can see like flags, sticks coming up, and it's just a really nice sight just to see that there's so much backing from the club and from the players, and it shows that, I think it builds the popularity, and also for the helping the community, I think is massive as well from a player's point of view. Being able to give back to the fans and also the people in need, I think is really, really good for everything towards the club.
Yeah, for sure. So anyone that's like helped out with the Don's Local Action Group that's listening, thank you, honestly, thank you for everything you've done, and keep up the brilliant work, and we'll help out in any way we can as well. So happy 1 year anniversary, and keep doing what you're doing, guys.
Brilliant. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it on a Sunday evening. Great, a good 2-2 draw yesterday, and we go into Northampton on Saturday with a full week of training ahead. So guys, thank you very much for joining us, and we will speak to you soon.
Cheers.
Appreciate it, guys. Cheers.
Take it easy.
Take care.
Cheers.
Hello. Sorry, I'm laughing to myself because my cat has managed to go onto my son's toy, and you may hear a beat in the background, and that's because they somehow jumped onto the cat. Oh dear. Oh, my cat's. It will stop eventually. George, the sign up, you did come in, George. I was waiting for you to come with a question. How did you find them? It was a good interview with those two, wasn't it? Can't hear you, George. Which is not a problem.
Now?
I can hear you now, George, yes.
Okay. Don't know what happened there, sorry. Nick hasn't spoken a huge amount publicly. He hasn't done many interviews with us or the club website. So it's really great that he was able to speak, and introduce himself to our fans, because he is our number one now, realistically, until the end of the season. I think we can all admit that at this stage. And he's had a brilliant couple of games. He looked assured again yesterday, which we'll speak about later. And Will focus brilliantly, as Will always does. He's a great ambassador for the club. He may not be wearing the armband, but he's a leader in the dressing room. He's a great representative for the club. And, he spoke well, as he always does, on issues that, the fans care about.
Tom, how did you find it?
I thought it was really good. As George said, you don't really see Nick Zanev talk too much in the press. Obviously, with the club and on social media, some of the players, a lot of the players don't have that much of a presence. I think it is really nice to hear their views and stuff. And again, Will, even though he's not captain, he still leads as though he is. And I think it's really good to see from other players proud to wear the Wimbledon shirt.
Yeah, and do you know what, Nick Zanev, really, lovely guy. And I've been told that before, but come across really, really well. And it's quite nice. Obviously, them two, you could tell we've got a bit of a relationship together, which is great. I kept thinking Nick was calling him Nicey. And I was like, that's a bit interesting, but of course it's Nicey on that side of it. But yeah, no, it was good to have them on, and really enjoyed that. And we obviously will get some players on later on in the month. Although the month's just ending now, isn't it? Right, okay, so let's crack on with Charlton. So 2-2 at Desmond yesterday. George, interesting game, wasn't it? Game of two halves, if we're being honest with you. We were a lot more effective in the second half. First half, I felt we were a bit tentative. Would that be right?
I think it's probably better describing quarters rather than halves. I think the first quarter, I think we were the better team. We were we didn't deserve to go behind in that first. We didn't deserve to go behind it right at the start. We played quite well in that first 15, 20 minutes or so, and I thought we were the better team in that spell. But then, obviously, for whatever reason, we weren't able to continue that for the rest of the half. Charlton built on it, went in maybe undeservedly at half time ahead. And then second half, we started well and then built on that again and again. And for who knows how many games running it is now, but it's a lot. We finished the game really strong and are unfortunate not to have got 3 points, because it was an incredible performance. And like they said, the standard's been set now and we need to build on it in games which are more winnable than Charlton.
First half, though, Tom, I felt we were a little bit struggling what we down the sides. They did obviously attack down Luke O'Neill's side. That cost us, effectively cost us 2 goals. Robbo said it's a bit of a trade-off sometimes in terms of, formation can help you going forward, but unfortunately can leave you vulnerable going back. Going forward, do you think that obviously second half we proved that if we press in the right way, then the formation will work? Is that what you're thinking, that side of it?
Yeah, I think in Luke O'Neill, I think we have got a very good. He's got a very good delivery on him, so I think especially that suits the likes of Palmer. I know Palmer didn't feature, but before, so I think O'Neill's inclusion in the squad does help us get that ball forward to our strikers. But I think in the middle we were really good. I think Oxenden had a good game. I think he was really interlinking play nicely, and kind of giving himself a presence in the game. So I think that was really good. And then Longman and Pigott, when he drops back off that front line, he can play a great pass into Longman and play him through. I think it was Pigott with the assist for the first goal, wasn't it? So I think the formation really helps us, especially with Longman running wide. I think it was quite nice to see that second half performance and a strong first 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think Luke O'Neill, he's had a bit of criticism over the last couple of weeks because defensively he hasn't been brilliant for us, but he does give us a very important outlet going forward with his delivery, which is probably the best we've got at the club in terms of crossing from the right. It's just a shame because he was exposed on Saturday, and I can't help but think if Darnell was playing, he probably isn't to the extent. Just because Darnell's a bit more mobile, he can probably help him a bit more cover Luke, which we have seen in the last few games. Darnell drifting out a bit more onto the right when Luke's struggling. So I'm a bit, I think that Darnell's absence did hurt us there, and I think Luke was exposed offensively, and it is a massive trade-off because we can't afford to be giving away goals every week, because that's a couple of goals in a few games in a row now that we have conceded from that right with Luke getting caught out. So it is a very important trade-off, and one that, we might need to consider maybe moving Shea Alexander back onto the right in games where we know there's a big threat down that side.
It's always interesting, isn't it, when we say a trade-off? Because I get what you're saying. But ultimately, if you think about when we were interviewing Nick and Will, they were saying, Nick was very much saying that if we do a high press and we would defend from the front, then they don't get to us, do they? So I think sometimes Luke O'Neill, yes, in terms of probably if you look at his strengths, is more his delivery going forward, defensively, not rubbish by any stretch of imagination. But so I'm a sort of, even as a trade-off, I think it's really important that we understand that the team have to work together. So, if they're going to get the ball out wide, Oksana needs to get out there and stuff like that. But I understand what you're saying with that. For me personally, it's a really difficult one because Jay is the better defender. I think, but Luke O'Neill is, if you think about Luke O'Neill, his first season when he came to us, was assist every week, wasn't it? And that sort of side. So it's a difficult one. But the great thing is we've got two players that are fighting for that position on that.
I think it's quite important that obviously Charlton aren't a bad side. They're sixth for a reason. And I think some of the football they play is really nice. And also we're come off a run of a few games. So obviously I'm guessing Nesta was rested because he played, I think it was 3 in a row in short succession. And then obviously Charlie going to playing left back obviously isn't his favoured side. I think he's a right back. So we are I don't think it was a full strength side, but I still think it was, we still had an impressive performance second half.
Yeah, and the first goal, do you know what? I look back at it today. It's a cracking goal. In terms of Dobson wins possession, again, hunting around in packs. Dobson and Oksana were hunting around. And it literally goes from left back, centre half, right back. Hennigan plays a lovely chip ball over. And then we make the goal. It's a breathtaking goal. I think it's so difficult sometimes when you're not there, isn't it? But I can't remember the last time we probably scored a goal that tight, George. You might. I can't think of one on top of my head.
Yeah, and that's the thing. But also, when you watch that goal back, that's a very Mark Robinson goal. That goal could have been scored by our under-18s when Robbo was managing there, or the 23s when Robbo was managing the 23s. It's very much that passing around, drawing the opposition onto you, and then switching it out wide to get a runner to cut inside and then try and create something from there. It's a very Robbo move, and it's something that Ryan is very suited to Ryan Longman. And he's someone we haven't mentioned so far this show. But what a confidence boost he had yesterday. He hadn't scored in, over 3 months. And then to go and get a brace and do quite well looking assured while he's doing it. I think he's starting to prove a couple of the doubters wrong. With him maybe questioning, should he be rested? And I think he had a very good game. And I think Ayub Asal also very important for that first 60 minutes.
Yeah, a lot of positive. And you know what? I didn't have any doubt in Longman, if I'm being honest with you. I was lucky enough to see him in person at QPR, and he's a really, really good player. My issue was I felt we just got out wide too much. And I felt like he was more central. He was closer to Pigs yesterday, which I think really helped on that side of it. Yeah, that's how I was really impressed. George, I'm not really liking you at the moment because I'm eating a lot of humble pie at the moment because I didn't think he was anywhere near ready to do what he's doing. But once he's on the ball, he's electric in terms of he's as fast with the ball as he is off the ball. I'm not going to go about George, because George is going to purr over him. Tom, I'm assuming you hadn't seen him much, probably like myself. What's been your impressions?
No, I really like him. I think he's quite an exciting player to watch. I think he can definitely change the game when he's on the ball. I think he's got a good footballing mind by the way he looks up and makes a pass. And also I think he's quite strong as well. He was taking on players double his height and winning the ball off them. So I think it was quite exciting to see, especially as we see a new kind of intake of youth players from the club. Obviously, we saw Zach Robinson earlier in the season, and hopefully we'll see more of Asal.
And George, the second goal, it's a funny goal, but actually, do you know what? That goal doesn't happen if we don't get the press right. And that's the thing, isn't it? I think you'll look back and go, that's an error from the defender. But I started to notice that Charlton were going long an awful lot more in that second half, as if the press was really, Charlton possession-wise, I think it was 53%, 47%. But normally, Charlton would probably boss that possession normally pre-Robbo. Yeah. But that press is the goal. The goal is the press. It's not the mistake. It's the press on it.
And that's the thing. League One defenders is very important because League One defenders think they're, could play midfield for Barcelona. That's the mindset they have. So if you press them, they'll want to try and play their way out of it. They'll want to continue to try and pass. I mean, they were playing sideways tiki-taka in their own 6-yard box, which no idea what makes them think League One can do it. And if you look at the possession stats in the away game, they were touching 70% in the period of that game, for the game at the Valley earlier in this season. And the fact that we were able to, get more of the ball press, and that just shows how effective that press is. I mean, it's awful defending. I mean, I've got no idea what he was doing. it was just you don't do that. Even if there's not a press, you don't play that pass. But I think it was a well-deserved goal. We got what we deserved, and the press is worth 5 goals a season from situations like that. Obviously, they won't all be as funny as that one or as obvious as that one. But, it just shows how important the press is, and it's such an important part of the game that Robbo is really keen to implement, and something that was lacking in our game, over the last couple of years.
So I was actually quite disappointed. I know we take a draw, but I thought we could go on to win that game. Some big chances, Tom, wasn't it, in terms of Piggott hitting the outside the post and the free kick. It's not disappointing to go on to that, but was it encouraging that we just didn't go and settle for the draw and we actually went for the juggler with charm?
I think it was really important, especially I think 3 points would have been huge for us now at this stage, because then you can build on that. I think this 1 point to celebrate the bottom six, which I think is unreal at this point of the season, not 30 games in. So I think a win would have been good, and it's quite nice not to see it. Typically, usually we'll sit back. We used to, be happy to take a draw, or happy to, against 6, take like a 1-0 loss and, say like, oh, we played well. So I think it's really encouraging to see the fact that we're going until 90 minutes. And I think Piggott, when we involved him in the game, he showed signs of who he was before Christmas. I think we've not seen that side of him, when he scored a free kick and he was scoring goals for fun. I think since the turn of the new year, I think we've kind of not involved him in play as much. And you see when he gets the ball now, he can drop back, play a pass, and hit the post, and then almost scored the free and forced a good save from the free kick as well. So I think it was definitely exciting to see us push at the end.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It wasn't just that we were pushing; we had the right balance. Because I was thinking maybe we bring on Palmer 4 pigs for the last 10 minutes just to give us something different. But it was very important because we were pushing, but we were doing it in a way that didn't leave us open at the back. Because we needed to push to see if we can get 3 points, but it was very important we didn't put the points at risk. Because if we lose that after coming from behind twice, it would be damaging for us, and we'd be back bottom of the table in a bad place. Whereas we were able to keep the point, and we were the aggressor trying to find that extra 2 points to get a win. I thought we were unlucky not to get it because we did deserve it. And that's the chance. When Pig hit the post, I thought we'd gone into half a second. I did think that we deserved the win at the end there, and we had the chance to do it. And that's 3-4 games in a row where we've had chances to win it and probably deserve to. And eventually that's going to come, and we'll start being able to put a run of wins together and hopefully pull clear of the bottom 4.
Yeah, some questions coming in to Jamie Scorer. What happened to Paul Cannon-Baye, and any news on Terrell Thomas? Because Darnell Johnson's injured at the moment. We don't know how long he's going to be out for. George, any news on Paul Cannon-Baye and Terrell Thomas?
Yeah, well, Terrell, he's was recently back at a couple of weeks ago, was back at the training ground for the first time in months after a sustained period out with a very serious non-COVID illness, viral infection. So it's great. Realistically, I'm not sure if he'll be back before the end of the season, but it'll be great if we can get him back before then. Paul Kay's had an operation. He's responded well. I think, again, he's one of those touch and go before the end of the season. But hopefully Paul Kay should have a couple of games at the end. And with Darnell Johnson, obviously, he's a big, big miss. And a couple of weeks ago, we were saying how much squad depth we have at centre-back. It's really important we have that now because we're starting to look a bit thin there. Hopefully Darnell's injury is not as serious as feared, and hopefully he'll be back before too long.
Definitely. And Robbo's post-match interviews now are becoming absolute quality gold. In terms of, it's very much him. He's not shy to call out goals, is he? He doesn't put any personal liability on it. He just is honest. And it's why I brought up with Will and Nick about, they need to go in on Monday and explain their role in the goal. And it was very kind of Will to open up with that. I'm used to the under 18s, and Robbo did that a hell of a lot. So for those of you who know, and George will be aware of this, he always had ownership on things. And I remember many times when they did a game without no coaches. I remember a game at half time when he asked for a right back to explain what he did wrong and what he could do better. So it's nothing new with Robbo. But Tom, is that something that's quite interesting about taking accountability, ownership? And you have to say, the guys there are loving Robbo. So it's not anything that Robbo's doing that's challenging them. Actually, it's helping them.
I think it's quite important because obviously if players are constantly thinking about what they may have done or may have not done, then I think that's the only way you can really improve, because if you don't know what you've done wrong, you can't kind of fix it. And I think the open approach is just what players want, because it means they can feel they can talk to their coach about, being in fear of being dropped if they criticise something he says. And I think Robbo's really open for for people's suggestions to help out on what they think they should improve on.
And that's the thing. I mean, I think it's, Robbo, like you said, too, is so much about learning, and a lot has been spoken about learning environments and making sure the players are able to, you know, he said 11 captains, but he's also spoken about the fact that he's had to do too much in the game, and the players should be able to manage themselves. And that's a big part of his philosophy and the process, because if you are a player and I mean, like Will said, he said what he could have improved on for the 2 goals yesterday. He'll go into that knowing in his head those situations, what he did wrong and how we can improve it next time. So next time they are breaking out wide, or next time his runner goes and he's wondering if he should change markers into the middle to hold the structural shape rather than, staying with his man marker, he'll be able to make a different decision that won't cost us a goal. Because there's nothing wrong with making mistakes. Everyone makes them. Every player makes them. Tons of them. But the big thing is making sure you don't make the same mistake twice. And the learning process is a big part of that. Making a player realise their own mistake and how they can fix it themselves reduces the likelihood of that mistake happening again. And I think you look at Robbo, our defensive record under Robbo's has been a massive step up on what it was towards the end of Glyn's time. And I think that is a big reason behind it, because players are taking responsibility for their own learning and their own development now.
So yesterday, league table was ridiculous, as I think, Tom, you alluded to earlier. Swindon won at Fleetwood. Rochdale stupidly scored a winner, what they thought was a winner, against Peterborough, and then 3-3. I think it shows there's going to be loads of twists and turns in this last 11 games. We play Northampton next Saturday. Guys, are you looking at results like I am, or latest scores? Because I know you shouldn't, but this league, it changes literally if you look at a 5-minute cycle during the league yesterday, I think we moved bottom, then out of bottom, then bottom. Tom, do you pay much attention to it?
I pay too much attention to it. I think I'm always looking at other teams around us, and it just, if you can draw 2 wins together, it puts you like 18th, and that's such, I think, morale boosting as well. So if you can string some form together like Burton did, Burton are cruising now, then nowhere near the drop really if you look at it. So I think looking at the results is interesting, because again, Swindon beating Fleetwood isn't something you'd think would happen, but then that's League One for you, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Go on, George.
I was going to say, I personally don't look at league tables or pay particular attention to what teams around us are doing.
Don't give me that rubbish. You must look at
it. Because I purely look at it as we know what we need to do. We know 4 wins probably makes us safe. 5 wins definitely makes us safe. I think that'd be probably about right. And we know what we need to do, and we know we can target the games where we're going to do it. It's in our own hands. By the time we kick off Saturday, hopefully we'll still be 23rd, but we'll have 2 games in hand on all the teams around us in a position where a win will take us out of the bottom 4. So that's all you've got to focus on. It's in our hands. We do what we do. If we go down, it won't be because Swindon picked up points there, or Rochdale got an equaliser, played well against Peterborough and got a point. It's because we didn't do what we needed to do. And I think that's the best way of looking at it, because we know if we reach 50 points, we're safe. And it's in our own hands, and that's what we've got to focus on. Not worry about what other teams are doing and putting any dependency on other teams dropping points.
You know what's interesting about Fleetwood as well, actually? I was reading in a week that they sold Paddy Madden to Salford. Not Salford, Stockport. It's close, wasn't it? It's our part of the world, actually. It is quite close. Stockport apparently rumoured to have paid 250 grand for him, and on £3.5 grand a week, rumoured. Even if those figures are a little bit too high, that's crazy money. And it's Stockport are investing, but also Fleetwood, it's rumoured that they are now trying to cut their costs. Could they possibly drop in, George, because of that?
I don't think Fleetwood are going to drop in this season. I think they'll be that team that were in free fall, and if the season was an extra month longer, then they'd be at real risk. I think they're probably just about safe now. But for next year, I think they're in real trouble, obviously. Joey Barton's left there now. He's now at Bristol. He's, I hate the man personally, but you look at his results and you have to admire the results he achieved at Fleetwood and what he's done so far at Bristol. And I think Fleetwood are going to be in real trouble next year if they're reducing costs. But you look at that money and some of the teams in the conference, all you have to do is look at Adam Rooney the other year at Salford, what they were paying to get him down, wages he was on. He would have been the top earner in our squad in League One, which is insane for that level. And just looking, you look at what's going to happen to Wrexham, obviously, this summer with the investment they're going to be putting in. Money in that league is getting really, really silly. And you just think if we were in that league now, we wouldn't be anywhere near the top sort of playoffs financially in the budget. So I think we did well to get out of there when we did.
You know what's interesting? I watched in a week. I don't know if you watched many of them, but they had that BT Sports film, The Owls, that we were in. There was also one that I'd recorded, which was for Harrogate Town, which if you haven't watched it, anybody out there, I don't know if any of you guys have watched it, but it's pretty good. It's basically around COVID. So when COVID hit, what they had to do, all the background. But there's a funny conversation with the manager who's looking for a defender. And he wouldn't name, the defender wasn't named, but it was like, do you think he would come to us? And they went, well, the agent went, well, he's got a few League 1, 2 clubs, 1,500 quid a week. And he went, so he wouldn't want 600 quid then at Harrogate. And it was quite interesting. Like Harrogate have done very well, but come up through the ranks very much playing outside of it. But it is a case of the haves and have-nots, Tom, in that league. And next year, if we're not in it, hopefully we're not in it, it's going to be a tough league that year.
Conference next year. We'll be in League 2.
League 2, sorry. Harrogate in League 2, George.
Yeah, but not when that documentary was made.
No, they were.
Really?
They weren't. They weren't. They got promoted. Yes, George, ignore that bit. We'll cut that bit. But Tom, in terms of, there's going to be a lot of players out for sale, aren't there, next season? And there's some big players already coming in.
I think that's quite a good point. I mean, a lot of players, COVID's going to have a massive effect on football clubs. They're going to have their squads down to their bare bones. So I think when especially free agents at an older age, I think the not young teams, lower clubs are going to be able to pick up players, I think, and they're going to be able to pay them maybe even less than they're worth, I think, because people will just want to play. And the money injected into the lower leagues is crazy. If you look at the likes of Salford, they've just got an unbelievable amount of money kind of put into them for a team that doesn't seem feasible. How a League 2 team can, I think one of their players, the salary caps obviously would have probably ended that.
Yeah.
And I think them being stopped wasn't something that, would benefit the league. I think, especially during COVID, teams need to have a block, or we're going to have more teams like, the sad stories of Bury, who didn't have the money to carry on. And I think there's going to be loads of other teams soon that fall to the same. And I think outside investment is going to be key, especially in success down there.
Sure, Salford's actually quite interesting before we go on to Northampton. I saw something on my Twitter feed yesterday, which was like, I don't know, I think it's 7 years ago when Salford played a certain team. And it was at their ground and there was no stands. It was literally fields. And I was like, and I think we've all seen the series that was on Sky. I think we've all seen a bit of that, haven't we? But I was just absolutely shocked of literally how much it's all gone up. And you're right, Salford is a big story. And they're going to be, they're going to be in League 1 at some point, aren't they? There's no doubt about that on that side. Cool, let's get off other clubs. So we have a free week of training, which is, I think in a way, Rochdale being moved now in between those 4 games that we were going to finish with isn't the worst thing in the world, because that's a hell of a finish. But Northampton next week, big game, George.
Yeah, it's a big game, but I think arguably more important than the game is the free midweek now. I think that's this season arguably more important than the Northampton game, because you look at it and you listen to what Robbo's been saying. He's been dying to get the players on to have any sort of training session, because there hasn't been an opportunity to do a huge amount, because it's literally been match day, rest, pre-match stuff ahead of the Tuesday game, then rest, and then you're into it again for the Saturday game. And having a free week is such a big opportunity now to really start to implement some of the things that has been talked about. Give the players a bit more time with Andy in terms of, maybe come up with the set pieces and the restarts to keep perfecting them. Have a bit more time on the rest and recovery, because they'll be no doubt feeling it after the minutes they've all had over the last couple of weeks, as well as just having normal training sessions with Robbo and Justin, and doing a bit of work with Steve Salis as well. It's a really important week for us, and if we're able to get everything right at the training ground this week, then it's a good opportunity for us to kick on, get something against Northampton, and push on and try and pull away from the bottom 4.
Because Tom, in all fairness, after that second half at Charlton, that to me, and I said it in trying to WhatsApp groups, is I think is close to what Robbo will want from his team. Of course, there's some other elements he'll want, but in terms of that press and everything like that, I suppose it's really important now that we don't relax next week in training and we implement that, because if we need to play that way for a good 60, 70 minutes. That's surely got to be the focus in training this week.
I think the last 20 minutes were impressive, but that middle period, I think, was what could have potentially won us the game had we stepped up slightly. Again, I don't know whether that was Charlton changing tactics or anything, but I think if we can take that into Saturday against Northampton and just go for hell at the leather for the start, I think first half, get ourselves a good start, and then see what happens with substitutions who can bring a bit more, maybe even more energy into the game and carry on that press. I think it is a tiring way to play football, and I think Longman will be feeling it this week because he was absolutely everywhere on the pitch all game. So fair play to him. There's a lot of effort put in, and I mean he got the rewards for it with 2 goals. But I'd love to see us go like that for a full game. I think we'd really see our performances improve with that.
And can you imagine, like, sometimes they say that like saving a penalty or a tackle is as good as a goal sometimes for fans. That press yesterday, I had this feeling in my head that it was like we were hunting them down, and you could imagine the crowd really getting on top of that, which could make it even stronger, couldn't it? George, we know that Plough Lane is open up as a vaccination hub on Tuesday, so some fans, if they've been waiting for that, I hear some people have been waiting like to make sure it comes up. I don't think that's the idea. Get the vaccination when you can. But it's starting to open up now, George, isn't it? In terms of the vaccination centre, we will be at. But that start, what I mean by that style of football, I think us fans are going to really get behind that. And then with a new ground getting behind it with that noise, I think we're going to impress and surprise some people, George.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I mean, I think you said it, the hunting impacts, that's the really important part of it. That's the big part of Robbo's sort of, I know he hates the word, but philosophy. That's a big part of it. The number of times, working with the academy or any of the other stuff, what he was saying, it was always hunting impacts. That's a really big part of what they have to do, in the press was a perfect example of it. Because it wasn't just one person pressing, it was always 2 or 3 people pressing, trying to force something, trying to make their play predictable, and trying to force them into the area, which eventually came. That's a big part of it. And you can just imagine, when it was after that energetic performance, after pressing, after that second goal, when we were pushing on for the winner, you can imagine the noise that you'd be able to have at Plough Lane, the atmosphere, the buzz, the energy levels, and all that would help. And that would really help the finishers, when the finishers do come off the bench, because we are calling them finishers, Stu. But I do think it's an important, they'll be able to make a big, big difference. And it's going to be a big part of our season next year when fans back, because it's a really special ground. And, those fans who are able to have vaccines at the ground will, see it in person for the first time. Obviously, they won't get to go into the ground or do anything like that, but they'll be able to just see it because it is a special place. And, people are going to start seeing more and more of it over the next couple of months.
Yeah, now the league is going tut finishers. I'm with you, George. It's a finisher. We only put 2 finishers on yesterday as well. We have 3 left on the bench, including Ollie Palmer, which was a surprise on that. Yeah, Tom, what are you in terms of Plough Lane's going to be mad, isn't it? And I felt yesterday that goal in front of what stand is it, George? The South, North? I don't know what cause it's.
South stand doesn't have
the South
sponsor
stand
yet,
so it's a South stand, but. You can just imagine, couldn't you, the excitement next season when we get to go into the ground?
Yeah, no, I'm quite excited. I had a season ticket for this year. Unfortunately, haven't been able to use it as of yet. You never know, if things go well at the end of the year, people might get in the game at the end of the season.
Whereabouts are you, Tom?
South stand, so it would have been right in my end. So it'd been quite.
See,
good.
that makes sense because you're young, so you can stand up. I just couldn't bother. I'm sitting there, but it does. When you watch a game, Tom, do you get that sort of like thing like, wish I was behind a goal?
Oh,
that sort of side of it.
I remember being at Kingsmeadow. Obviously, I unfortunately didn't get the chance to visit the original Plough Lane, but at Kingsmeadow, the Kenflow end, it was buzzing when we were on top of a game. Or I remember speaking to Adam Roscrow. I did an interview with him about men's mental health for November and his effort for it, and he said that it's like you get all your energy back when you hear people when they're behind the goal and everyone going mental. And I think Plough Lane, when it's fully packed, is going to be double that, and it's just going to be incredible. I think it really is going to be a place. Hopefully, it will be a place to come for other teams because they won't want to, experience that atmosphere and the support for Wimbledon.
Definitely. And George, where are you? You're in the posh seats, aren't you?
I'm not in the posh seats. I'm in the West Stand. I'm in the cheap seats of the West Stand. But I think
there's no cheap seats in the West Stand. That's the main stand, George.
The cheaper seats of the West Stand. But just in line with the edge of the penalty area. at the south end. But I think, the atmosphere there, you've got the flats obviously on two sides, you've got the high west stand on the other, and having a metal stand with metal backings on let's call it a terrace because it is. It's safe standing, but it's a terrace. You're going to make an awful lot of noise in there. And you can just imagine, Tuesday night under the lights, you're going to be able to make an awful lot of noise there. And I can't wait. First time ever Premier League Cup tie down there. It's going to be unbelievable.
Yeah, I can't wait. Well, that's us for this evening. Just to let you know, we've got a special podcast that I recorded about mental health, actually, as you were just sort of saying, Tom, with Aaron Roscoe. So recording a special mental health podcast, which will come out on Wednesday. Got some really good guests on that from the club. So we've got Jane Lonsdale, Hannah Kitcher, Mr. Mikey T, Matt Haylock, and Joe Palmer. So recorded that last week about mental health and relationship with football. Really good, open and honest chat, and hopefully that will be. It's a good listen, but hopefully that will help, because obviously we've all had challenges some way or another with our mental health over this pandemic, and when we are allowed out, hopefully, which isn't long now. I did notice like my Instagram feed has got someone counting down and the days they can go to a pub. Yeah, can you imagine that weekend? People are going to be absolutely slaughtered. I don't think we'll bother doing a Sunday Night Live that weekend. No one's going to be awake. No one's going to be awake for that, are they, George?
No, and also no one should be counting down till then. We should be counting down until our test events on May the 18th.
Oh, George,
that's much more important. That's the one where we'll have 2,000 people at Plough Lane watching a game of football together.
When is that? May the 19th, isn't it? You said May the 19th, 18th?
18th, I think. But yeah, it's that weekend.
Yeah, that'd be mad, wouldn't it? That'd be mad when you get to. Obviously, we know I think it's going to be dementia holders and then non-refundable season ticket holders. The sort of priority list on that. But hopefully, the club will get some information out shortly on that. Okay, well, guys, look, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Hope you've all enjoyed from home watching. Obviously, with Will Nightingale and Nick Zanev joining us. Podcast, like I say, fresh podcast out Wednesday. Then our normal weekly podcast out will be out on a Friday. Nick and I are going to discuss the Broncos because we will be approaching the 31st of March and that all-important Don's Trust vote. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you